When we got together yesterday morning, we decided we went over the letters that we had received over the past week and a few phone calls of people who had called in with prayer requests. And it was really good for us to do so, as Mr. Watkins mentioned earlier, because it helped us all to focus in on the needs and the problems and the pain, the suffering, the frustration of many people, and to get our minds on them collectively before we prayed for them. There was one thing that occurred to me this week as we sat and read our way through, reading to one another the letters that had come through, was the fact that all of these people who had written to us asking for prayer wanted their lives to change. They wanted something to be different tomorrow from what today was. They didn't want to wake up tomorrow morning and have the next day of their life be just exactly like the one that it was just over. They wanted it to be different. A man who wrote to us asking for prayer for a little girl who was in the hospital and then spent every day of her young life in hospital. She was, I think, 6 weeks. She was blind. He wanted to wake up the next day with his life and her life different. Didn't want it to be the same. The person who wrote in with leukemia would like to wake up tomorrow morning and not have leukemia. They would like for it to be different. The person who struggles along with surgery and with chemotherapy and goes through the agony of that would really like very much not to have to do that anymore, would like their life to change. And the people, it seems there occasionally are waves of them that come through who are broke and don't have a job and don't even have a car to get to work if they had a job, and asking us to pray and help them to find some way out of that situation. They really would like for tomorrow to dawn and their life to be different. One of the ladies who wrote to us, who had been married 5 times and had 3 children, and was now alone and had no way to feed those children, I guess she'd had enough change. Maybe she wanted us to pray that her life would settle down for a while, but even she wanted to be different. She didn't want it to go on like it had been going on. It will be different. Tomorrow, when you wake up, your life will be different from what it was today. And it's different today from what it was yesterday because change is inevitable. It is written into the nature of things. It is a law. They call it entropy. That is, that everything in the universe tends to less and less order. It takes energy, it takes design, it takes work, it takes pressure, it takes force to create order. Now, on my right and on my left behind me are 2 trees. I believe both of them are ficus trees, handsome trees. Both these trees seem to be just sitting there, not changing. But they are changing. They're changing as you look at them. They're changing while we sit here. As you and I breathe out carbon dioxide, these trees are taking that in and working on it. It takes power to keep these trees growing. It takes design to impose order on the material that is in these trees. It takes fuel to power the growth and the development that's going on there. Otherwise, entropy would take over. You take away the power, you take away the design that imposes order, you take away the fuel from it, and the tree will die, and it will slowly decay. It will slowly go back, it will rot away, insects will go into it and decompose it. Another form of ordered life will destroy it, or perhaps it can be cut up and burned, which is one of the ultimate ways in which disorder, total disorganization, comes out of something that is orderly and organized, or it turns it into ashes and into gas that's dissipated in the atmosphere. You may not realize what a tremendous degree of organization is imposed on these trees, but it is imposed, and it will inevitably die. It will inevitably decay. If you have a box, and you can put a divider in that box, and you can fill each side of this box, fill one side of it with nitrogen, and fill the other side of it with oxygen. You can have the divider in between and seal the box off. And you can, and have done by doing this, impose order on what would otherwise be a disordered system. You have forced oxygen to be in one side, you have forced nitrogen to be in the other, and you are maintaining that status by what you have done. You have imposed order. It took energy to do it. It took planning to do it. It took thought to do it. It took organization to do it, and you did it. Now, you do know, don't you, that the instant you remove the divider between those two gases, that imposed order will begin to disintegrate. That those gases will slowly, I don't know whether it'll take them 3 minutes or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but you can come back after a period of time, and if you have the instrumentation to do it, you'll be able to determine that there is an absolute even distribution of oxygen and nitrogen throughout the box. Because all of the order that you impose will slowly disappear. The solar system in which we live, on one little planet orbiting out, I think, a third or a fourth from the sun, is highly organized. But it's an organization, once again, that is imposed upon it. The sun is an organized system. It follows through things in an organized manner. But it follows a set of laws. And as it burns up its fuel, ultimately it will slow down, it will collapse, and it will finally explode, which is the ultimate form of the resolution of this problem of organization, an explosion. And then there will be no more order, no more design, no more anything in the solar system in which we live. Human beings are no different. Unless there is a source of power, unless there is something imposing or creating order and direction, our bodies and our lives decay into chaos. Look around your house. When you go home tonight, wander through there. Look in your closets. Look under the bed. Just look at your house. Your house may be in greater order than someone else's house. If it is because you have imposed that order on it. You've gone through and gathered up toys and bits and pieces of tools or brooms and things, and you have put brooms in broom places and toys in toy places, and you have made beds and you have laid it all out. But unless you work to maintain that order, your home will slowly disintegrate into chaos. And if you own your own home, and you have for any period of time, you know that unless you work to maintain your home will slowly come apart. Cabinet doors will get loose. There will be little cracks show up in your trim work. Pieces will fall off. Little door handles will finally get loose. A little round kind of a screw that goes in behind them. You know how they are. They finally sometimes come off in your hand. Time after time. If you don't do something, if you don't screw it back down tight, if you don't take care of these things, slowly but surely, your home will fall apart. You can drive through country roads back here in East Texas, and you can find homes where the law of entropy is prevailing. They are slowly but surely dissolving into utter chaos. Sometimes with real people living on the inside. I think it makes quite a parable of the way our lives are, too. Because the fact is, unless there is something that orders your life, unless there is something, a power, a fuel, a design that imposes some kind of direction on the change that takes place in your life, the change that will take place in your life will be absolutely random. You will get up tomorrow morning, and your life will be different, but it will be totally, unpredictably different. There will be no direction to it. No one knows what's coming. No one knows what causes all these things. They just happen to us. And so we go through our lives bemoaning our fate and feeling sorry for ourselves and what have you. But the fact is that our lives, things happen to it, helter-skelter, here and there, whatever direction, just pure happenstances. The Bible says time and chance happen to all men. But it is not quite random. Overall, there is a downhill bias. There is a bias toward disorder and decay in our life, in the random events that seem to take place. But now there is such a thing as change that has direction. Right? Change that has direction. We call it growth. For example, the tree behind me has changed with direction. As long as the tree is healthy and alive, its direction is up. Its leaves and branches go out. The color is green. It continues to develop this way as long as its normal lifespan, as long as its root system, as long as the little container that holds it will allow it to do so. It has direction, and that direction we call growth. When we speak of growth, things grow. They get longer, taller, bigger, better, fuller, right? But there's also negative growth. Things can grow smaller, they can grow shorter, they can grow worse, and a lot of times we say, don't worry, they will get worse. Or the old saying, don't worry, nothing is going to turn out all right. Now the question is, I said all that to say this, what can you do to give the change in your life, which is there? What can you do to give that change positive direction? What can you do to grow? 20 years ago it was, I think, somewhere in that vicinity, I was asked to do a study lesson on spiritual growth. And when I was given, it was flattering in a way, but I was utterly unqualified. At that time, I didn't anymore understand the subject of the man on the moon. I had a little idea about growth and what it was. My solution to all problems of that nature in those days was prayer and study. That if a person had a problem in their life, they just weren't praying and they just weren't studying enough. If their attitude was wrong, they needed to pray more and study more, right? We just need more prayer and study. You go into counsel with the minister, you sit down, you tell him all of his problems. He said, friend, I got it all figured out. What you need is prayer and study. The problem was, it didn't always, quote, work, end quote. That all prayer and study weren't the solution to all my problems. They didn't necessarily impose order on them. They didn't necessarily create growth. Now I want you to turn back to 1 Peter, the first chapter, because there are some things, actually I think 1 Peter, the second chapter is what I want. 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 2. I'm sorry, 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 1. I'll have it right in a moment. He says, wherefore, laying aside all malice and all guile and hypocrisies and envies and all evil speaking, as newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the Word. Now, the milk of the Word is, this is Bible we're talking about, isn't it? Desiring the sincere milk of the Word. It's the basic fundamental teachings which your mind and your body and your life can use as fuel to give you some kind of an idea and some kind of direction in your life. Bible study, right? The milk of the Word. But then he says, desire the sincere milk of the Word, that, or in order that, you may grow thereby. Now, I hope you'll stay with me just for a moment, because you may not immediately see what the importance of the last part of that verse. There is a question of motivation and of reason that is introduced into this. Desire the sincere milk of the Word, in order that you may grow thereby. Now, I have really been struck over the past months at the incredible thirst that exists among people for the Bible. I mean, you can say, I'm going to hold a Bible study, or I'm going to hold a Bible class, and people all of a sudden they come, they'll drive an hour and a half, to get there, and drive an hour and a half to go home in the evening after working all day when they got to get up the next morning because they want to study the Bible. There is a high level of motivation in people. When we did our first class here in Tyler, there were some ladies driving from Houston. It was 4 hours one way to attend class. I was astonished. I couldn't believe that people were willing to make that kind of a sacrifice. I thought those old days that I recall back in the 50s when people would drive 300 miles just to go to church were over. Well, they aren't really. The fact is that if a person can get a tape sent to them, there's no good reason for them to get up and drive 300 miles. But if and when you have got something there in a place going on that they can get to, they'll be there. And they'll go to long distances to study because they really do desire the sincere milk of the Word. But I do also know that there are many people who come and sit and listen, whose lives continue on in the same disorder, the same chaos, the same undirected way that they have always gone. What's the difference between a person who will attend and take a course of study and go out of it unchanged, and a person who comes in and takes a course of study and goes out with a new direction in their life? It is in a simple, very simple, deceptively simple statement. Some people are minded to grow, and other people are not. When you approach a sermon, be it on a tape recording or in person, when you approach a Bible study or Bible class, in person or on tape, you approach it with a mindset. If you come to it with a sense of inadequacy, a sense of frustration, a desire to make some differences in your life, and with a willingness to change directed change, not random change. You are going to change. You do know that, don't you? The question is, how are you going to change? Have you come to this with a mind to change, with a mind to grow? Because if you do not change intentionally, you will change unintentionally, and that unintentional, undirected, misdirected change leads nowhere but to chaos. If you change on purpose because you are minded to change, this has direction. This is what we call growth. And that's what he says you should want. The sincere milk of the Word, in order that you might grow as a result of having this milk of the Word. You have to be dissatisfied with the way you are. And it's a funny thing. It seems like it takes catastrophe to get most of us to the place to where we really are minded to put some change, some ordered change in our life. The disorder, the chaos, the confusion has to reach a certain level until we'll slam on the brakes and say, no more, enough already. I've got to change this. I don't want to put up with this anymore. Somehow or other, something has got to change. But what kind of change? As I said before, the change that we need to make in our lives has got to have some kind of direction. Turn back to Romans, would you, the 12th chapter. It's a familiar scripture and one that was favorite of all sermonette givers back in the old days. In the 12th chapter of Romans, and beginning in verse 1, he says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable, that is your intelligent, thought out, planned service. It has to do with a presentation of yourself according to a reasoned approach. That smacks almost of having a plan, doesn't it? It smacks of having an intelligent application, of taking the mind, applying the mind to it, and saying, this is something that I want to, ought to, am willing to do. Present your bodies a living sacrifice. And be not conformed to this world. Be you transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, being conformed to the world is a kind of a broad, generalized expression. But when you realize that the direction of the world is into greater and greater chaos and confusion, when the direction of the world is entropy, when the direction of the world is random change with no meaning, no direction, no nothing, but except destruction and decay, then you understand that by conforming yourself to the world, you're just allowing the world and circumstances and things in it to just buffet you around. He says, instead of being conformed to the world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It is your mind, your intelligent, rational mind, that is going to have to impose order on your life if it is going to be done at all. Now, there is another way of imposing order on your life. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party attempted to impose order in the life of Germany before and leading up to and through World War II. An external order imposed upon us is tyranny, not freedom. And Paul preached freedom. What he is talking about here is what you impose upon yourself with your rational, intelligent mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Do you suppose we're capable of stopping the general helter-skelter in our life, sitting down somewhere and reflecting a little while with our hands folded across our laps, staring off into space, and make a decision to begin to impose some kind of direction on our lives? Sure we are. There's no big trick to that. You just got to take a few minutes and do it. The hard part, perhaps, is deciding what you want that direction to be. Where you want to go. What do you want to get? And what do do people say, well, I want to be in the kingdom of God. Okay, fine. What do you do to do that? How do you go about getting there? What are the things that are expected of you? What sort of changes does God expect of you? What does He want you to do if you're going to be in the kingdom of God? And these generalized goals that don't really mean anything don't take you anywhere. You've got to know what you want. People who don't know what they want wind up in chaos, confusion, because they cannot impose direction on a life that has no goals, no purpose, and no objectives that are definable and you can live with and that you can make something out of it. Now he begins to talk about certain things that you can consciously think about, certain directions and things that you can conceivably impose upon your mind. He says, "For I say, through the grace given to me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God has dealt to every man the measure of faith." Ego, self-importance, these are some of the chief barriers to a person actually sitting down, looking at himself and saying, "I have got to make some changes in my life." People who think highly of themselves, pleased with themselves, comfortable with themselves, think they don't need to change. Or they think they won't change. But the truth is, they will change. You get up tomorrow morning and you're liable to have some gray hairs that weren't there. You know, you are a day older. You may be a little bit fatter than you were today. You may be, a few more wrinkles around the eyes and crow's tracks begin to show up. Lots of things happen along the way. You got to consider, tomorrow is not today. It will be different. If you're thinking of yourself more highly than you ought to think, and you don't sit down and say to yourself, "Wait a minute, it is time for me to impose some direction on my life," you won't do it. He goes on to say, "For as we have many members in one body, and all members don't have the same office, even so we being many are one body in Christ, and every one members of one of another, having then gifts differing, according to the grace that is given to us, whether prophecy, let's prophesy according to the proportion of faith." Now what he's talking about here is interesting. He is talking about a system. The system is the church. And in this system, which we call the church, there are all sorts of gifts, talents, and abilities. And what he's saying is that there would normally be in a church a tendency to dissolve into chaos, into confusion, because people will tend to move off in random directions. The only way that a church can maintain any kind of unity is if it imposes some kind of direction on itself. Now, of course, we could have a Hitler come along and impose direction upon us. But the point is that that direction needs to be imposed upon you by yourself. And that produces, incredibly, a direction in the church. And the church can begin to have some goals. But not when people who think more highly of themselves than they ought to think interfere in other people's jobs. Think about it. One person is given the gift of faith. Another person is given a gift of teaching. Another person is given the gift of exhortation. I mean, one person is given one gift and tries to do the other man's job. Confusion is the result, is it not? When people begin to interfere with one another instead of cooperating with one another? Sure it is. Confusion and chaos. It's the normal entropy that takes place in all human endeavors unless or until we can achieve some direction. He that exhorts, let him do it, wait on his exhortation. He that gives, let him do it with simplicity. You're a person who has a chance to give, just whip out your wallet and give him some money. Let's don't make a big complicated issue out of it. Just with simplicity. He that rules, with diligence. He that shows mercy, with cheerfulness, not grudging. Let love be without pretense, dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil. Cleave to that which is good. Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love, in honor, preferring one another. You know, you want to think about this for a moment, because he keeps putting this word, be this, be that, be the other thing. Now, I presume that the fact that Paul says, be this to you and to me, means that he anticipates that we can be. Right? Otherwise, what's the point? Therefore, I have to conclude, because it's in the imperative and it's addressed to me and it says, be this, that is within my capacity to be that. And that I am expected to impose some direction on my life in this way. He has said, there's a direction for you. Be that. Now, to be that, I've got to say, okay, let's see, what do I do next? What is the order of things that I ought to be accomplishing? Where am I supposed to be right now? And where am I supposed to be an hour from now? And where am I supposed to be tomorrow to be able to be that? This is expected of us, folks. It isn't something that just happens. Things that just happen are all bad. Oh, no, they're not all bad. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. But they combine together to pull a man or a woman down. That's all there is to it. Random things that happen to you are going to wind up being bad in the end. It's like going out to Las Vegas with $100 and sitting down at the crap table and just staying there. You stay there, it will be gone. There's a law at work. It's a law of chance. There is no way that in the long run you can win. As John Maynard King said, in the long run we're all dead. Turn back to Ephesians, the 4th chapter. Ephesians chapter 4. Because here again is the whole idea of the importance of imposing some kind of direction on your life, and oddly enough, once again, upon the church. The direction, though, that winds up getting imposed upon the church happens because of direction, goals being imposed upon the lives of people who are in the church. Paul says in chapter 4, I, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation wherewith you are called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long-suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring, that's working, to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body, one Spirit, even as you are called, and one hope of your calling. Now, all right, here's a man that has come along, and he spoke to this little church down in Ephesus, and he gave them a challenge. He said, I am challenging you to work together in harmony and in peace. I want you to put up with one another. That's what this word forbear means. Now, I'll admit it takes a lot of putting up with. I take a lot of putting up with. Some of you take a lot of putting up with. But the fact of the matter is, he has just told you, he's just given you a direction. He says, here's something for you to do, and you can do it. It is within your grasp to do it. Just try to put up with one another instead of getting mad at one another and coming down on one another and snapping back at one another. Just forbear one another in love. Endeavor to keep the unity of the Spirit. Not just any unity, but the unity of the Spirit. This word endeavor is interesting. It basically means you've got to work at it. It's work to keep it. It doesn't seem that it's automatic. In fact, unity is an unusual condition. It is a rare condition. This tree has unity. It is a single body. It's got a root system, and the roots are joined to the trunk, and the branches are joined to the trunk, and the leaves are joined to the branches. It is unified. Unity is rare. Entropy, collapse, chaos is ordinary. And that's the way things will go, left to themselves. I can promise you, if we never go back to this tree, if nobody ever approaches it again, nobody ever does anything else to it, it will die. It cannot survive here. And so it is with the church. It cannot simply be allowed to just go helter-skelter in any direction that it decides it wants to go, as members want to go. It is up to each of us to impose some kind of direction upon ourselves. Not to try to rule over one another, but to impose direction on me, to impose direction on me. Because I know what I have to do. I may know what you ought to do and that you're not doing, but I can't do anything about what you ought to do. I can do something about what I ought to do, right? And so can you. Our problem is we just don't have enough people who are doing what they know they ought to do. They're too busy worrying about what other people ought to do. He continues to explain in verse 11. He gave some apostles and prophets and evangelists and pastors and teachers. He gave the church this for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the building of the body of Christ, till we all come in the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God unto a perfect man. Now there is one thing that is required. Whenever you're going to put together something like this, some level, some degree of coordination is a must. You can't even have a bunch of skilled workmen who really know their jobs and only try to do their jobs. They will not be able to build a building unless there is some element of coordination in their efforts, right? Unless somebody says to the carpenter, well, there's no point in your getting here before next Monday because the guys will not be finished having the foundation poured until then. I mean, somebody has got to coordinate. It isn't necessarily a matter of beating people about the head and shoulders. It's just saying this is your job and that's your job, and he'll get this done in time for you to take over that, and just letting people know. Because people of goodwill can even have problems unless there is some element of direction and coordination in the things they do. And that's what the ministry is for. It's till we all come in the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God unto a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. Are you there yet? I'm not. I'm a long way from that. And I presume then that I'm going to have to do some changing. And even now I have just had another thing dropped on me. The direction that I am supposed to change is in the direction of the knowledge of the fullness of Christ. I'm supposed to be like Him. Now, I'm not there yet. I'm a long way from here. That tells me not just one thing, but lots of things about how I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do next, how I'm supposed to respond, how I'm supposed to be to react, where I'm making my errors, where I need to make corrections. There's an enormous amount of information that comes to us here. He says so many things, and time wouldn't permit me to go through the whole chapter. It's worth it to you to do it. But you see, just as a reminder, change without a goal leads to chaos. What he talks about throughout this 4th chapter of Ephesians is goals, directions, purposes, things to be done, attitudes to hold, ways that we ought to be. Every one of them requires change, but it requires thoughtful, deliberate, conscious, directed change in our life, and that equals growth. If you don't make those steps, the random change will come. Entropy is waiting in the closet, and when you go home and hang up your coat, it will jump upon you. It's there. It's waiting on you spiritually at every turn. Now, it was Peter who told us about this thing about growing, and wanting the sincere milk of the Word to grow. And I want you to turn back to 1 Peter, because there's something else you may not have thought about. In 1 Peter, chapter 1, beginning in verse 1, Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, elect according to the foreknowledge of God the Father, through the sanctification of the Spirit, unto obedience and the sprinkling of the blood of Jesus Christ, grace be unto you, and peace be multiplied. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, which according to His abundant mercy has begotten us again to a lively hope by the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled. Now I want you to understand something very clearly. Peter is saying to you here, before he gets into a very important and critical point, you do have a goal, you know. There is a tremendous goal. It is an inheritance that is incorruptible and that is undefiled. But between here and there are some things you need to know about. It is reserved in heaven for you who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. There's the power. In other words, order, organization, and direction require power. We've already talked about that. Wherein, he says, you greatly rejoice in this goal that you have, though now for a season, if need be, you are in heaviness through manifold temptations, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perishes, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ, whom having not seen, you love, in whom though now you see him not, yet believing, you rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory, receiving the end, the objective, the goal of your faith, the salvation of your souls. Now, this manifold temptations thing, that is just an adequate description of what tomorrow will be like. You will get up in the morning and you will face temptation before you even get your feet on the floor. You'll face temptation as you wander around the rooms of your house. You'll face temptation as you look in the mirror. You'll face temptation when you walk out the door. You'll face temptation when you get in your car. There'll be trials. There'll be troubles. There'll be problems. And some of them that are going to come your way are going to be perfectly awful. Time and chance happens to all men. And the majority of mankind, when evil strikes, when adversity comes their way, and when temptation befalls them, just come unglued. They just think God's deserted them, that God doesn't care, and that God's not involved. And they don't realize that things happen to them just like they happen to every other man under the sun. But in their case, it can be different. Oh, I don't mean necessarily that all of a sudden because you're going to pray and you're God's servant that you're not going to ever have anything bad happen to you. Forget it. That's not the way it works. The way it works is that wherever you are and whatever evil or rotten thing happens to you, you must at that point of time set a direction for your life. You have to begin to impose some order on things. You have to begin to set some goals. You have to begin to realize that all this thing that happens to me down here is a part of the chaos that assaults everyone that ever walked into this world. The question is, am I going to just wander through it, being buffeted about by one thing and then another, or am I going to have some direction? Am I going to have a goal? Am I going anywhere? Is this that's happening to me mean anything? Peter says, oh, yes, it does. Turn back to the 4th chapter, if you would. 1 Peter 4, in verse 12. Beloved, don't think it strange concerning the fiery trial that is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you. But rejoice, inasmuch as you are partakers of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory shall be revealed, you may be glad also with exceeding joy. Do you realize that a fiery trial is not a strange thing? It's normal. It's entropy. It's law. It's the world. It happens, that's all. It's not strange. It is absolutely normal. What is incredibly abnormal is that some people grow in fiery trial. That's what's amazing. And it can be done. It requires the simple awareness that you are a partaker of Christ's suffering and that he has something in store for you, and he will never allow any of your suffering to be in vain. He will never allow it to be that way as long as you try to keep some direction in your life. It can come to nothing. There can be no value. It can be a total loss, the crisis that you face. It can be just nothing but confusion and total chaos, unless you are willing to allow him to give your life some direction. The truth is that everyone is changed by trial. Not everyone grows. What makes the difference? Having a mind to grow. Making up your mind about direction. The fact is, if you want your life to be better, if you want to grow, then you are going to have to sit down, as Paul said, and use the mind that God gave you. And you are going to have to look to his power and your direction and his instructions to impose some kind of order on your life, some direction, some goals. If you can do that, the end result, you can grow. If you'll turn back to the end of Peter's writings, to the end of 2 Peter, he says, you therefore, beloved, seeing you know these things before, beware lest you also, being led away with the error of the wicked, fall from your own steadfastness, but grow in grace and in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ, to whom be glory both now and forever. Amen.